pants and that's a bad. I don't even know. Okay, so that's all for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Yeah, just okay. Start again. Hello team, welcome to another video of Doing Being Becoming, where we aim to inform, impact, influence and inspire. In today's video we are going to be talking about something we have all been forced to do within these 21 days, unless you are a healthcare worker or any of the other essential services, in which case if you are, we'd like to extend our gratitude to you for working so hard during this time and for essentially putting your life on the line. If you are not an essential service or a healthcare worker, then you have been forced to rest. Please stay at home. Please stay at home. You have been forced to rest, and for some of us to acknowledge that this is something that is very difficult for us to do. Hence, I'm going to be talking about. So, in this video, we are going to be talking about what rest is, why it's important, the socialization of rest, in society. I'll be providing a new perspective on rest, and I'll end the video off by just giving you a few ways in which you can improve your sleep hygiene if you are somebody who struggles with sleep and rest. So, what is rest? Rest is an occupational performance area on its own, which just shows how important it is. And by definition, it's to cease work or movement in order to relax, to sleep, or to recover strength. So you see in that definition already then, the importance of rest is to recover strength. And a lack of rest or lack of sleep is related to motor vehicle accidents, to industrial accidents, to increased healthcare utilization, and also to decreased work productivity. So it leads to increased health care utilization, because lack of sleep puts you at risk of obesity, hypertension, diabetes, heart disease, cancer, and just a whole other range of health problems. So if I were you, I'd rather just rest now when I still have the chance and the choice, instead of being forced to rest later for eternal peace. Tense. But why is it so difficult for us to rest? It's difficult for us to rest these days because we have been so socialized that we have to work all the time, and because when we do rest we feel that we are falling behind on work that we could have been doing. Also phrases like I'll sleep and I'm dead, or sleep is for the weak, or they really eat at your soul inside when you are sleeping, and it becomes really, really difficult. Also because there are so many demands, there's so many responsibilities that we face each day, that there is no time, or the first thing that you think to sacrifice to fit in everything else is sleep. So you'd rather go on 3 hours of sleep and be able to do everything else, and sacrifice doing those things at good quality than actually to rest. I actually wrote a blog about this last year, and I'll put the link below so you can actually go look at that. But when I was rereading the blog, this really stood out to me, and I'm going to read it out. I wrote, sometimes we think we are impressing by producing all these. I'll read that again. Sometimes we think we are impressing by producing all these results, but it may be that our supply far exceeds the demand, which creates work in vain. Work without observation is dangerous. So you see then that the importance of rest is to be able to reflect, which is what I spoke about in last week's video, which was on journaling. So it's important for us to rest, to be able to self-reflect, and also be able to replenish ourselves. If we look at other processes as well, if we look to nature, we also see that nature also needs to rest. If you look at how the gardening cycle works in agriculture, you have the time of turning the soil, then you plant, you tend, you harvest, and after that the soil needs to rest, and that resting is really important for the nutrients that were lost in the soil to be able to replenish themselves. Even in investment, they always say you must let your money work for itself, right? Okay, so you put your money away and you allow it to grow, you allow it to work. So it just shows you that you don't need to be actively working all the time, and even when you in kneading or in baking, there's a time where you have to knead the dough, and that's you actually actively be involved in the process, and there's a time where you actually have to put the dough away and just allow it to grow. Okay, you allow it to rise, and that's also important for us to rest, to step away from our work, to allow our work to multiply itself. Okay, so while I was writing this blog last year, I just got a new perspective and a revelation of resting. And the first point of departure was the whole creation story, that God worked for 6 days. Okay, worked for 6 days, and after that he rested. Now God is God. Like God, I'm sure he doesn't need to rest. Okay, akozeli agalali, so you can't tell me that he got tired during creation. No way. Okay, but I do believe that the whole reason for him to actually rest was to give us a model of how we should actually go about our work ethic. That there is a time where you work, and there's a time when you need to step back and look at your work and be like, wow, what I did there was damn good. So also it's very important for us to realize that just because we aren't physically working or physically expending ourselves, it doesn't necessarily mean that our mind isn't working, because how many times have you tried to go to sleep and you wake up still feeling so tired because the whole night you're just thinking of something, and your mind was so actively engaged that it left your body so tired. So it's very important for us to also be conscious and aware of moments when we are physically inactive but our minds are actually active, because that energy that we spend on us thinking actually leaves us physically exhausted. So what's the point? What is the point? The resting is just as important as the work. I think of music and how in music there's rests in between, but the rests with the notes make up the whole song, so you need the rests to make the piece of music complete. So so just to encourage you, if you're really finding it difficult during this time to just relax, to unwind, to rest, there's a scripture that says that cast all your burdens unto me. Come to me, all you who are burdened and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. And this shows us, or it shows me, that yes, you may sleep, yes, you may do things to relax and unwind, but ultimately rest is found in the presence of God. That rest and the presence of God are synonymous with each other, and that's why in Hebrews 4 we are encouraged all the time to come into rest, to come into the presence of God, because that's where we find our nourishment. You come to God and you just lay it all down. You're like, Jesus, actually I can't, and you go out feeling so ready to go, so restored. And okay, so just to end the video off with a couple of strategies you could use to improve your sleep quality and your sleeping patterns. If you do suspect that you have a sleeping disorder, which is a sleeping pattern that interferes with your daily engagements, then I do recommend that you seek professional help. However, the first thing you can do is to have regular sleeping and waking times, okay? Because this helps to regulate your circadian rhythm. Your circadian rhythm is basically your sleep-wake cycle, and there are two main hormones that are involved in this. And the first one is melatonin, not to be confused with melanin, okay? Melatonin and cortisol. So cortisol is basically the hormone that helps to keep you awake throughout the day, and it's at a peak when it's daytime, okay, and when it's light. And melatonin is basically what rises and peaks when it's dark and when you need to be sleeping. So that's the hormone that helps to keep you asleep. So when you have regular sleeping and waking times, you are basically helping to put your internal environment in sync with the external environment, so that it helps to improve or regulate your sleeping patterns and your sleeping quality. The second thing is to exercise regularly. Okay, so exercise helps to put your body into fatigue, so that also improves your sleeping quality. The third thing is to have a warm shower before you go to bed, because you know how much that slaps. Okay, so having a warm shower before you go to bed. Also importantly is to be comfortable when you go to bed. So if it's hot, then dress coolly. If it's cold, then dress warmly, you know, because then you put your body at a comfortable state, and you know it's not irritable and agitated, and you can't even like relax and sleep. Okay, so speaking of relaxation, deep breathing and relaxation is also a way that helps you to improve sleep quality. I always recommend this to people who struggle to sleep or find themselves waking up in the middle of the night. Okay, so when you do deep breathing or deep breathing exercises, then it actually helps to put your body back into a state of calm. Another thing you can do is to switch off from social media, switch off the lights, you know. Also, back to what I was saying about the whole melatonin that actually helps to peak and to, you know, keep you asleep. So switch off from social media. I'm sure you've heard this 1,000 times before, but really just to help you to unwind, to help your brain activity to just calm down and be rustig, so that you can actually sleep. Also, don't eat like an hour before you go to bed. Recommended time of things like 2 to 3 hours before you go to bed. That's like when you should have your last meal, so that your body isn't still busy digesting while you're trying to sleep, you know, like really, like you know. So yeah, there's a couple of things that you can do to help you sleep. If there's anything that you do that helps you to sleep better, to improve your quality of sleep that I haven't mentioned, then please comment with that down below. I just want to end this video by a quote that I saw from a friend, and that really just, you know, like was like, whoa, speaking to the way that we are socialized in terms of like work and rest. And it says that it takes courage to say yes to play and rest in a culture where exhaustion is seen as a status symbol. So during this 21 days of lockdown, I want you, I'm imploring you to have courage to rest, to play and to sleep. Okay, so to have or to use this time to be with your family, to use this time, you know, to do things that actually make you happy, to do things that, you know, set your soul on fire, you know, just to rest, to calm down, you know, to not put so much stress on yourself. Again, I understand that it may be difficult for some of us, especially considering the responsibilities that we may be facing, but yeah, just take it one day at a time. So that's all for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Continue to do the most: like, watch, share, subscribe and comment. Again, I do acknowledge that this is a very difficult time for all of us, but we all need to do what's in our individual power to stopping the spread of this pandemic. Until the next video, please stay safe, please stay at home, and let's continue to do what's in our power to do, be, and become.
When this life becomes a fight, you are where I put my gloves down. When I'm running